knowing the wind patterns, waste of time. We'd go out to fly a mission, a particular day, and we'd get briefed by the guy from Washington, brief the navigator and the AC and the weather observer. And we'd go out, we'd be progged to fly a ratchet pattern across the wind vector. And we could ask the test guy, what are the odds of finding something today? He said, nah, not today. Not on this track. About 3 days from now is when we expect it to be here. The Russians had 5 different test locations that they tested weapons, including the big one on Nova Zembla, the island of the Arctic. That's where they did thermonuclear testing. It didn't make any difference which one of those 5 test areas they used. The worldwide weather patterns would take that air mass and either bring it across the pole, bring it east across Siberia, across the straits, the Bering Straits, or a little southern track across the Gobi Desert, across China, the Sea of Japan, and eventually into the Gulf of Alaska. So it didn't make any difference where they tested. Eventually, if you were flying out of Alaska, you could get to it. Okay? And we didn't have, remember, those are early days of weather satellites. Midas was the first one of those. And not very sophisticated. Damn, those guys are good. They could plant the prong and tell you something is going to be there. When we were getting ready to do the mods, the engineer who was working on, the chief engineer here, working on designing where to put the side-looking radar, etc. He called me one day, and I came over from Patterson, and he said, "There's a problem. Fore and aft placement of the side-looking radar antenna. The place he needed to put it to get good structural installation. Put the tail cone of the SLAR antenna piercing the plane made by the main gear and the tail skid. So that plane was pierced by this antenna, which theoretically meant that it could hit the ground on landing. Okay. So I looked at it and went back. We did some calculations and figured out the angle of attack that would be at landing flaps, 25 degrees flaps, was horrendous. And I told him, I said, I've only seen it happen one time ever, that it got near them. And at McClellan one time, landing at McClellan, the guy got a nose high attitude and ground off the bottom couple inches. This is a UHF antenna, if I remember correctly. Just grounded off on a runway on landing. So I said, no way. It's not a problem. I'll sign off on it as the test pilot. There's no way.
Did you ever have a problem? Others may have.
My replacement, off the record.
Oh, okay. You want me to not record this?
Well, yeah, don't.
So
I think
the SLAR antenna you're talking about, that's been removed,
right
obviously, right?
Right. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's the Doppler. Let's see, which one's the Doppler? I think this one's the Doppler in the rear, and I think that's
That one.
ANAPS 23 search radar up front, in the front blister. Okay. We put.
You had photographs of it with the SLAR on it?
I think so. I think I've got a side photograph. Okay. We put the SLAR antenna here underneath the rear bomb bay. We closed the rear bomb bays, and there were. You see, we're here. This is a cutout. That wasn't there originally. That's for the oblique camera. Okay. There's another one on the other side. Okay.
Yeah.
So this cutout was for the antenna, and this cutout is for a vertical camera. Okay. The infrared back here somewhere. a little offset.
The other side.
Other side.
Yeah. This spoiler wasn't there in the original airplane. This spoiler is to get any possibility of turbulent air affecting imagery in the vertical camera.
Oh.
So this wasn't there in the original design. Okay.
That's just for the camera.
Yeah. You know, if you ever get to the point where there's something that you need to know, you communicate with me. If you've got things all packaged and ready, here are the kind of things we think we ought to do. What have we missed? I'll come up and go
Okay,
over with
great.
it, okay?
Great. Again, I don't know how soon we're going to be working on it, but just stay healthy, sir.
I was going to look. Thought I was going to see if the I think we removed the IPD. It would have been right up here on just right of the center line. You can see.
Yeah, I can see like a.
You can see the rivet lines.
Yeah.
See the rivet lines?
There's the one in the back. There's like a round circular.
Yeah.
And then
But
ahead of
the
it.
reason for two of those is one of those was for the, and you can go back and look at B-50 pictures. One of them is going to be the guns, and the other one's going to be the gunner, who had remote slewing capability, but they were radar controlled. Okay. Technology that.
Is this a good airplane?
I think so. I did hurricane penetrations in it. We did.
Is that right?
Hurricane Estelle off the Mexican coast in 1960.
You talking about the same physical plane or just the?
No. We had each squadron had probably 14 airplanes, something like that, 12 to 14 airplanes. But this airplane did belong to the 55th at McClellan, because I remember it. And what would happen is we would keep an airplane until it was ready to go to Iran. And when it went to inspection and repair as necessary, went to Iran and was returned, it didn't necessarily come back to the same squadron. Okay, so an aircraft could rotate from one squadron to another that way. Okay. And what happened, you can look up, you can find the site. And I don't know the dates, but I'm going to guess it was probably in the fall of 1960. In the summer of 1960, we had a problem with fuel cells. These fuel cells, originally in the airplane, were people say bulletproof, but it's really bullet resistant. If shrapnel or a bullet went into it, there was a sealant layer.
Kind of self-sealing.
Right, exactly right. It would go through, and then the sealant would fill it up. Well, over time, that deteriorated, and we started having leakage problems, weeping, and leakage of the fuel cells. So the airplanes were very limited usage for a couple of months in the mid to latter part of 1960. And then somebody in the logistics system found that somewhere in a warehouse in Log Command were a whole bunch of fuel cells that were still in the system in the inventory. They inspected them. Some of them weren't good, but we eventually could replace them out and everything and get the fleet back up operational again. Somewhere in this time period, and you could look up the history, we were building nuclear reactors for spacecraft, the Kiwi program. And the nuclear reactors, I think, were nicknamed Rover. Up on Jackass Flats in Nevada is where they were testing. And while they were running a test run, they had an accident, and one of these things blew up. It wasn't nuclear, but they were concerned it may have spread debris and got nuclear debris into the atmosphere. So we launched 2 airplanes out of McClellan to go check the whole western United States to see if anything had gotten into the atmosphere.